Our neighbor had a heated driveway, a fountain, and a custom gate that played classical music when it opened. When my daughter's bike accidentally scraped his curb, he demanded we pay $900 for cosmetic distress. I refused. He sued. We lost. 2 weeks later, I learned he hadn't declared his gate, his fountain, or his driveway heater to the HOA. They hit him with $37,000 in retroactive fines. He came to me, white-faced, begging to negotiate. I held up my hand, looked him dead in the eyes, and said, $900. Cash. Cosmetic distress, right? We live in a suburb just outside of Fort Collins, Colorado. Not in the city itself, but one of those planned neighborhoods 10 minutes out, where the streets have names like Maple Bend and Sunset Ridge, and all the houses look like they were made from the same 4 blueprints. We moved here 3 years ago. My wife, our daughter, and me. We weren't trying to be fancy. We just wanted a quiet, safe place where our daughter could ride her bike without having to dodge traffic or broken sidewalks. I've got a decent job with the city, and my wife works part-time at the library. We don't make a ton, but we'd saved for years to buy a home. We chose this neighborhood because the HOA kept things in order, and the houses were still just within our reach. Most of the people here are friendly enough. You wave, they wave back. A few folks keep to themselves, but nothing weird. And then there's Nathan. Nathan moved in a little after we did. His house is about 4 homes down from ours on the corner of the loop, and it sticks out like a damn palace. All the houses here follow pretty strict HOA rules, but Nathan must have had some kind of early approval deal or special contractor who knew how to work the system. His house is huge, custom white brick, big iron gate, and a circular driveway with heated concrete. You could tell because in the winter, his driveway never had snow. Not even after a blizzard. The rest of us were out with shovels or snow blowers, and his stayed bone dry. He had this fountain, too. Marble, with water running through little lion heads. It sat in the front yard like something you'd see in front of a hotel. But the weirdest part was his gate. The thing opened automatically every time his car came close, and it played this soft harp music as it opened. Real high-pitched, delicate notes, like something out of a classical concert. You could hear it down the street. Some folks thought it was cute. I thought it was ridiculous. He kept to himself for the most part, which was fine with me. The few times we crossed paths, he was polite in a fake sort of way. You know the type. Always smiling, always nodding, but it never felt like it reached his eyes. I helped him once when a package guy left boxes at the wrong door, and a gust of wind sent them tumbling across the sidewalk. I chased a couple of them down, brought them back to him. He barely muttered a thank you and just said, "Some of those are fragile, you know." That was it. So I stopped trying. We weren't going to be neighborly friends, and that was fine. I didn't need friends like him anyway. Then one afternoon, my daughter, she's 10, was riding her bike around the loop. She does it every evening when the weather's good. She always stays close, never goes past the corner. That day, she turned a little too sharp and scraped her pedal against the edge of Nathan's decorative curb. Just a light scrape. She didn't even fall, just wobbled a bit, steadied herself, and kept riding. I didn't think anything of it. Hell, I probably wouldn't have even noticed the mark if I hadn't known to look for it. But Nathan noticed. He came to our door that night, holding a printed photo. It was zoomed in so close you could see the texture of the concrete. He'd circled a little scratch in red ink. Looked like a smudge to me. "This happened earlier today," he said. "I believe your daughter was riding her bike around the corner?" I nodded. "Yeah. Why?" "She damaged my decorative curb. This was custom poured concrete. Specialty dyed. I already spoke with a contractor. The repair cost is $892.57. I'll round to $900. Cash or cashier's check." I blinked. Thought he was kidding. "You're seriously asking me for $900 over that?" His face didn't move. This is a high-end finish. That curb is part of my landscaping design. Cosmetic damage matters. This isn't standard concrete. I shook my head. It's a scratch, man. On a curb. You want to send a kid's family a bill over a curb? He shrugged. If it were your car, you'd expect to be paid. Damage is damage. I'm not paying you $900. He looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Then I guess I'll see you in court." And he did. 2 months later, we were in small claims court. I brought pictures of the scratch. I explained that it was barely visible, and that it was a neighborhood curb, not a personal possession. Nathan came in with a folder full of documents, including a repair estimate from some high-end contractor. He even brought a chunk of matching concrete to show the judge how unique the coloring was. The judge sided with him. Said it didn't matter that the scratch was small, it was damage, and it happened on his property. We were responsible. We had to pay. I wrote him a check for $900, handed it over, and walked out of that courtroom more pissed than I've been in years. Not just because we lost, but because of how smug he looked as he folded the check and slid it into his jacket pocket like it was just another receipt. I tried to let it go. I really did. But 2 weeks later, I was walking my dog around the loop and saw Diane, she's the HOA treasurer, checking some landscaping near the entrance sign. We got to talking. She mentioned that the board was reviewing some changes for one of the newer homes. I made a joke half out of spite. "So, any new rules about fountains or musical gates?" I asked. She looked at me funny. "Why?" I told her about Nathan's setup. The harp music. The heated driveway. The new curbs he bragged about in court. Her expression changed immediately. "Wait a minute. He's not allowed to have any of that." "What do you mean?" "He submitted original plans 3 years ago. There was nothing in them about a fountain. And heated driveways? We don't allow external heating systems unless declared in writing and approved. Same with noise-emitting gates." I just stood there, holding the leash. "You're sure?" I asked. She nodded. "I'll look into it." I didn't think much would come of it. Maybe a warning letter. A fine at best. But 2 days later, Diane called me. "Thank you for the tip," she said. "He's in serious violation. He never filed amendments. We have records showing no approval for the gate, fountain, or driveway. We're calculating backdated fines. How much are we talking?" Her voice was almost amused. "It's over $37,000. And climbing." I didn't hear from Nathan after that. Not right away. But I heard from neighbors that he'd gone to an emergency HOA hearing, tried to argue that everything had been approved verbally by someone on the previous board. Didn't matter. They had nothing on record. Then, one Saturday morning, he showed up at my door. He didn't knock like he used to. No confidence. Just a slow, weak tap. I opened it. He looked pale. Like he hadn't slept in days. His hair was a mess, and his button-down shirt was wrinkled. "Listen," he started. "I think I let things get out of hand. I regret how I handled the scratch. The lawsuit. I was angry. Look, the HOA's threatening serious action. I was wondering if you'd be willing to help me. Maybe talk to them? Tell them there's been some misunderstanding?" I let him finish. Then I stepped forward, looked him in the eyes, and held out my hand. $900. Cash, I said. He blinked. "What? Cosmetic distress, right?" He stared at me. Didn't say a word. Then turned and walked away. He hasn't spoken to me since. And I haven't even gotten started. After Nathan walked away from my porch, things in the neighborhood started to change. Fast. It started with the HOA notices. Everyone on the block got one. Diane decided to use Nathan's violations as a reason to remind all homeowners to double-check their property modifications. The letter listed specific examples of unapproved changes: heated driveways, fountains, noise-producing gates, etc., and pointed out that backdated fines could be assessed. It didn't mention Nathan by name, but everyone knew. Everyone. People started whispering. I caught one of the moms at the bus stop saying to another, "Did you hear about the gate guy? 37 grand. Just for being sneaky." They laughed. Nathan wasn't a mystery anymore. He was a warning. Then came the lien. The HOA put a lien on Nathan's house when he missed his first payment deadline. Diane told me privately they'd given him 30 days. He hadn't paid a cent. He tried to fight it. Tried to say he was being targeted unfairly. But the HOA had proof. Emails, forms, photos. He never declared a damn thing. They stood firm. What really set things off was when he installed security cameras, 6 of them. Big, bulky ones that hung over his front yard and driveway like sentries. It was his way of lashing out, I think. Like he was daring the neighborhood to challenge him. Only problem? The HOA has strict rules about visible security equipment. Anything bigger than a doorbell cam has to be approved, and cameras can't point toward public sidewalks. Guess what his did? 2 days later, another violation. Another fine. Another letter on his gate. But here's where it got strange. About a week after the lien, I noticed someone parked in front of Nathan's house late at night. Just sitting there in a black SUV. Lights off. Engine running. I figured it was a delivery or Uber, but after the 3rd night, I got suspicious. I told Diane. She checked with HOA security. Turned out Nathan had hired a private investigator to dig up dirt on me. Diane called me the day they found out. "He's trying to say you've been harassing him," she said. "That you started this whole thing as revenge for the lawsuit." I almost dropped the phone laughing. "Yeah, no," I said. "The only person I ever called was you. And that was just a casual question." "Well," she said, "his PI has been talking to neighbors, asking about your work hours, your family, even your kid." That stopped me cold. "He's asking about my daughter?" "Yeah," she said. "People are starting to get uncomfortable. One of the neighbors told him to leave. Said he was digging too personal. That was it for me. I wasn't letting him drag my family into his mess. So I called a lawyer. Not to sue yet, but to document everything. The lawsuit, the curb scratch, the photos, the HOA complaints, the lien, and now the PI. I wanted a file. A thick one. Just in case he pushed this any further. Meanwhile, Nathan was unraveling. His yard started to look rough. The fountain got turned off, and the water sat still and green. The harp music on the gate stopped playing. Weeds started popping up between his cobblestones. It was like the man stopped caring. Or ran out of money. Probably both. Then, he put his house up for sale. No big announcement, no open house. Just a small "for sale by owner" sign and a couple of blurry photos on a local real estate site. I checked the listing. He'd marked it down almost $80,000 from what it should have been worth. And in the description? Sold as is. Buyer responsible for any existing HOA disputes. That was a red flag for anyone with half a brain. So it sat. And while it sat, I kept hearing from neighbors. Some felt bad for him. Others didn't. But no one really trusted him anymore. Even the ones who used to nod and wave stopped making eye contact. Then something happened that made it personal again. One morning, my daughter came inside crying. Someone had slashed her bike tires. Both of them. She'd left it leaned against our garage, like always. We'd lived here 3 years, never had an issue. But now, out of nowhere, her tires were shredded. My stomach dropped. I didn't have proof, but in my gut I knew it was him. It was too perfect. Too timed. And too quiet. No one else had a reason. I went to Diane. Told her what happened. She said if I had any camera footage, she'd take it seriously. So I checked. We'd installed a cheap doorbell cam a year ago, mostly to watch for packages. And lucky for us, it caught something. At 2:38 a.m., a tall figure in a hoodie walked past our driveway. Paused. Bent down near the bike. Then walked off. You couldn't see the face, but the build? The walk? It looked exactly like Nathan. I gave the footage to Diane. She took it straight to the HOA board. They called an emergency meeting. And that's where things took another turn. The emergency HOA meeting was closed to non-board members, but Diane kept me in the loop. Said they reviewed the footage, and while it wasn't clear enough to call it direct proof, the timing, the location, and Nathan's history were highly concerning. The board voted unanimously to issue a formal warning to Nathan, citing suspected retaliatory behavior against fellow homeowners. They couldn't find him for the bike, no undeniable proof, but they made it clear they were watching him closely. Any future issues, they said, and they'd file a restraining order on my behalf. Nathan didn't take it well. 3 days later, we woke up to find paint splattered on our garage. Not a huge mess, just a smear of grayish-blue latex dripping down like someone had tossed a half-empty can. No note. No sign of a struggle. Just ugly, silent damage. This time, I didn't bother with Diane first. I called the police. The officer who showed up was calm but firm. Took photos. Filed a report. But without a witness or a clear video, it wasn't going to go anywhere fast. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the porch with a bat in my lap until the sky started turning pink. My daughter's bike was locked inside the garage now. Every light in the front yard stayed on. I wasn't afraid of Nathan, not really, but I knew unstable people do stupid things when they feel cornered. What I didn't know was just how cornered he really was. The next day, I ran into Chris, a neighbor who lived right across from Nathan. Guy works early shifts and sees everything. He told me Nathan had been getting visits from someone driving a black Range Rover. Always parked in his driveway, always left after dark. I asked if he knew who it was. No clue, Chris said. But it didn't look friendly. Last night I saw Nathan standing outside with him, red in the face, waving his arms. Like a full-blown argument. That got me thinking. I remembered what Diane said. Nathan claimed he had verbal approvals from someone on the old HOA board. What if that person wasn't just someone he lied about, but someone he owed? I started digging. Didn't take long. 2 years back, the HOA president had been a guy named Maurice Rowan. Retired contractor. Stepped down after a quiet scandal, apparently got caught giving unofficial approvals in exchange for under-the-table work on his own place. Guess who did the repair work on Morris's new deck? Nathan's name was all over the contractor invoices. I took that info straight to Diane. Her jaw dropped. That explains everything, she said. He thought he had coverage. That Maurice would keep it buried. But Maurice was gone. And Nathan's lies were falling apart. The HOA board called another vote. This time, to push for forced compliance. Either Nathan removed the violations and restored his property to its original state, or they'd move to place a second lien and seek court enforcement. They gave him 30 days. And that's when Nathan broke. One night, about a week into that deadline, I woke up to sirens. 3 cop cars outside Nathan's house. Lights spinning. A small crowd gathered in pajamas and robes. I stepped outside and saw 2 officers talking to Nathan on the front lawn. He looked wild. Hair sticking up. Wearing just a t-shirt and sweatpants. I heard him yelling something about being targeted. About retaliation. About false accusations and conspiracies. An officer asked him to calm down. He didn't. They cuffed him. Diane texted me the next morning. Mental health evaluation hold, she said. Someone called it in after he left a threatening voicemail for a board member. Nathan spent 3 nights in psychiatric observation. By the time he came back, the house looked darker. Sadder. The fountain had been drained. The gate was stuck halfway open. The grass grew patchy and tall. Then, one last twist. A few days later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Typed. No greeting. No name. You think you won? You started this. I'm not done. I stared at that line for a long time. And I realized something. Nathan wasn't trying to get even anymore. He was just unraveling. And sometimes, when a man like that falls apart, he tries to take others with him. I took that letter to the police. They couldn't prove it was from Nathan, but the timing and the wording matched everything else. They advised me to keep cameras running, stay alert, and log everything. I upgraded our doorbell cam to a wider angle model and added another facing the side yard. My wife wanted to move. I told her no, we did nothing wrong. I wasn't going to be bullied out of our home. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. About a week later, I was at work when I got a call from my wife. Her voice was shaking. He's out there. He's parked across the street. Just sitting there. Staring at the house. I told her to lock the doors, stay inside, and call the police. By the time I got home, the cops had already come and gone. Nathan wasn't there anymore. They told my wife he hadn't broken any laws by sitting in his car, but they added it to the record. That made 3 separate reports now. The next day, I saw Nathan in his yard. He was pulling weeds. Slowly. Like he had nothing else to do. His fountain was bone dry. The marble cracked in 2 spots. His once perfect hedges were brown. The gate hung crooked. The harp music had been silent for weeks. I stood at the end of my driveway and looked at him. He looked back. No expression. No wave. Just eyes locked on mine. And then he smiled. It was small. Just a twitch at the corners of his mouth. Something about it chilled me. That night, I heard a loud crack outside. Ran to the window. My garage light had been shattered. Just the bulb. Glass scattered across the driveway. I checked the camera footage. There he was. Nathan, hood up, face turned, walking fast. Smash. Then gone. That was the last straw. I filed a restraining order the next morning. Took every report, every photo, every shred of evidence we had. Diane even submitted a letter of support from the HOA, confirming the pattern of escalating hostility. The judge signed off that same day. A sheriff served Nathan that afternoon. He screamed at the deputy. Refused to sign. Claimed it was a setup. Called me a parasite, in front of my wife and daughter. He was given a final warning. You break this order, you go to jail. The next week, he put his house back on the market. This time, listed through a proper agent. He dropped the price again. Still no takers. The lien, the damage, the HOA record, it all followed the listing like a dark cloud. Then, one rainy night, about 3 weeks later, Nathan broke the order. I came home from work to find him standing on my porch. Soggy hoodie. Hands stuffed in his pockets. Pale and hollow-eyed. I didn't even speak. I didn't ask why. I just pressed the emergency call button on my phone. Police were there in 6 minutes. They cuffed him right on my welcome mat. Read him his rights while the rain poured down on his back. He was charged with violating a restraining order. That was the beginning of the end. Over the next 2 months, Nathan's world collapsed. His house went into pre-foreclosure. The HOA moved forward with their legal action, forcing the removal of every unpermitted upgrade. The gate was ripped out. The fountain jackhammered. The pavers dug up and replaced with plain, gray concrete. The new buyers finally came. Young couple with no kids yet. Paid below market, aware of the previous issues. The heart gate was gone. The driveway was normal. The lien was settled, but Nathan walked away with almost nothing. He moved out in the middle of the night. No goodbye. No explanation. But here's where the story ends. 6 months after he left, I got another letter. This one was typed again. No return address. But the tone was different. You won, it said. But you're not clean either. You started it. You let pride take the wheel. I'll be watching. I read it once. Then I tore it in half. Because here's the truth, Nathan was right about one thing. I could have just paid the $900. Moved on. Let it go. But I didn't. I wanted him to feel what I felt that day in court. I wanted him to choke on the same helpless rage. I wanted him broken, just like he tried to break me. And I got my wish. But it didn't feel as good as I thought it would. Not when I saw the look in his eyes that night in the rain. Not when I realized I'd spent a year watching my back. Not when my daughter said she didn't feel safe riding her bike anymore. Revenge always feels good in the planning. But when it's over, and the wreckage is real, you start to wonder if maybe, just maybe, you burned more than one house down. And one of them was your own.